Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Neighbor Vandalized My Home. Most people who post stories here about their crazy neighbors have some ideas when things happen that there was an underlying problem. My case, however, is a bit odd because until he was actually caught, I did not really have any problems with this neighbor. We were not friends or anything, but we coexisted without ever having an argument. So, looking back to start this story, I really had to think about what kind of motive this guy might have had against me. After a lot of thinking, I really could only come up with one reason that this guy had to go to these kinds of extremes. The last few years, his teenage son would mow my lawn and I would pay him for it. I got a promotion and my wife asked me if I could hire a professional because they trim the hedges, maintain the flower beds, and do a lot of other things that a teenager with a simple mower just cannot do. When I explained it to both of them, they seemed calm and said that they understood. I was not his only customer, so he was not losing out on a ton of money from me anyway. It was so insignificant that I did not even think about it until about a week ago. Anyway, on to what happened that started to cause me concerns. It started with a few small incidents like graffiti on my mailbox and X on my car. There were a ton of kids in my neighborhood and I just assumed a few got bored and wanted to play some mean jokes on random neighbors. The problem was that it didn't stop there. Trash cans went missing, my mailbox was bent to the point it was not really usable, and I always had to check before backing out that something sharp was not left with the intention of damaging my car. The biggest giveaway though was that this was not happening to anyone else near me, it was just my house. Still, I was convinced it was some stupid kids that just picked me as a target for some reason. That was when things got more serious and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had tried many peaceful solutions like getting a gate and putting up automatic outdoor lighting to try and scare them away. It wasn't working though, and these seemingly harmless pranks were getting worse. I went outside one day and noticed that my lawn was dying out of nowhere. I could not figure out for the life of me what was causing my lawn to die. Like I said before, I now had a landscaper and he was also just as baffled to what had happened. He did give me a small piece of advice that he had never seen something like that naturally happen before, only with chemicals. At this point, I was officially fed up and decided to put up a security camera hidden in my yard to find and catch what I still thought were teenagers in the act of destroying my property. Maybe if I recognized them, I could take the tape to their parents and they could help me out. I was shocked though when one morning I rewound the video and saw at about 3 in the morning it was neighbor entering my yard. He was not with anyone and my theory of kids playing bad pranks was officially gone. You could see him clearly in the video spraying chemicals all over my lawn. I honestly couldn't believe what I was watching because, as I said, I didn't know any issues that I was having with him. Still, I was not going to let him get away with this and I took the video to the police so they could do something about it. Those chemicals were dangerous and not only destroying my yard, but I felt like it could be a danger to one of the many dogs that walk around and on my lawn. I was really hoping that I wouldn't need to waste any more time out of my life dealing with him and was happy when I learned that I didn't need to appear in court. I was however able to find out what happened to neighbor after he pled guilty on a charge of chemical mischief. Honestly, the thought of a 40-something-year-old man being charged with mischief just sounds funny to me. In the end though, it was agreed upon that he was not going to serve any jail time, but he was going to be on probation for 3 years. That meant if he tried to continue what he was doing to me, then he probably was going to end up in jail. So every day I had to go outside and see my dead lawn with neighbor just standing there, almost gloating. It was also safe to say that my wife was deeply upset about the state of our yard because she actually had plans for it now that we had a professional. She was going to plant some flowering bushes and other goodies, but now that money was being used to fix our lawn and get it back into somewhat of a decent shape. I kept the camera up just in case, but he was smart enough to leave my property alone. Still, I was angry at just how upset my wife was, so I decided to get one last small piece of revenge. None of the other neighbors knew what was going on between us because nobody is very nosy here. I made sure after he had his plea deal that everyone on the block knew why my lawn looked as bad as it did. They could only stare at him in shock over how such a nice-looking man could do something like this to his neighbor. Meanwhile, I was not speaking to him at all, and when I went outside and saw he was there, just doing what I had to do as if nobody lived in the house next to me. Things are finally clearing up now, and new grass is coming in nice and green again, as if the chemical attacks never happened. I got my wife everything she wanted, and it seems like everything is back to normal now. I don't know for sure, and probably never will, what his motivation to do those things to me came from. I still have a strong feeling it came from me firing his teenage son from mowing my lawn. It is only a guess though, and as far as I know, he could have been mad for an entirely different reason. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoyed the stories about crazy neighbors, then I would really appreciate it if you could also like the video if you wish to support my channel. Each like and every single comment helps my channel tremendously. Thank you so much for your amazing support. The next one is titled Manager from Hell. Sorry if this is a bit long. VA stands for Veterans Affairs. You will see this in some of my replies. I am a 100% disabled veteran, but I still wanted to work for as long as I can. I worked in a large company that contracted to many of the big oil companies. For years I had excellent reviews and the customers loved me. My manager got promoted and one of my coworkers became the newly promoted manager. He started out fine, but then as he went through management training, he became that boss that people hate. He was trying to flex his muscles by using all the usual tricks of setting you up to fail in order to fire me and a couple others. Why? I have no idea. One day at work I had a major medical emergency that left the right half of my body with no feeling at all, completely numb. That took me out of the office for several weeks while they used steroids to try and help sort out the issue. A couple months and an MRI and spinal tap later, they discovered I had multiple sclerosis. After I was diagnosed, he decided to pull me out of the customer side and have me work in the office. My job had zero office work. I spent nearly a year in the office getting paid to do stupid mind-numbing BS while he tried to figure out a way to fire me. Since the initial issue was medical, it proved to be very difficult, so he would try to assign me to long-term duties, like 6 months plus, hundreds of miles from home, knowing I could not do them. He was also nitpicking any menial task I did not perform to his liking. He knew I could not travel as I have to see several doctors every month and I can only refill medications from my local VA, Veterans Affairs clinic. While he was trying to fire me, I was talking to HR about my disability and how it is obvious that I could no longer perform my job for safety concerns. That was the reason my boss pulled me into the office. I also informed HR about how the manager treated me and several other employees. They had me do several things, including sending my medical records to a company medical doctor to make sure I was being honest, I assume. In the end, HR decided to put me out on pre-approved early retirement with short and long-term disability. Now I will get paid from the company till I am 67, all before he could get the chance to fire me. Additionally, several other workers quit around the same time as me, and a short time after I left, he was replaced by a different coworker. And yeah, ripe stars, that is definitely a very positive ending. However, I gotta say, I felt really bad while reading this story, because at least for me, it is always sad to see older people, especially in this case disabled veterans, being treated so poorly at their workplaces. The next one is titled Screw Over a Delivery Man? Bad Idea. Back in the warehouse days, we had an ever-growing clearance section. Because of this, the company employed a delivery driver to be solely responsible for delivering clearance items purchased by customers. This delivery driver, let's call him John, was amazing. He was a veteran of the industry, had 2 trucks, a smaller and a larger one, did most of the heavy lifting, always took the time to chat to me as I helped him load up his delivery run, and would bring me beer when it was an extremely hot day, and when he knew that I'd been busting my butt. He had worked for a bunch of high-end furniture stores, but when the recession hit and companies went belly up or cut costs, he found himself struggling for work. The company I worked for had a problem with delivery drivers due to the fact the company was cheap and would not pay the industry rates most delivery drivers charged. John was happy to make a few concessions for cash-in-hand deliveries, and naturally, management took advantage of that. After a few problems in the warehouse, I asked John if I could get a few shifts working for him as his delivery of cider. John immediately said yes, as he had problems of his own with lazy employees. I immediately fell in love with the work. We would do a 4 AM start to get deliveries on the watch by 6, and if we scheduled it correctly, we could be done by 2 to 2:30 PM. I loved the physicality of it, loved being on the open road, and loved swapping stories with John. He would talk about his wife and kids, and I would make fun of his tacky scorpion tattoo. The problem started when John would get his delivery run sheet from the store and would see the delivery prices quoted to the customer from the manager. To give you an idea, the store would charge $95 for a local delivery. This was with a full day of deliveries and approximately 20 to 30 deliveries. John would charge slightly more as he was doing maybe 5 to 8 deliveries, and they would be all over as opposed to all being in a specific area. John would go in and chat to the manager and ask why a customer was only being charged $50 for a 3-seater sofa bed going up 6 flights of stairs when normally it would be a $110 delivery charge and $100 for every flight of stair past the first level. The manager would just shrug and say she reduced the delivery to close the sale. We would get other deliveries where we would have to carry a 10-piece sectional sofa up 7 flights of stairs because the customer would not reserve an elevator. Or in some cases the goods would not fit in the lift. We would get the sofa inside, unbag it, connect the sections, take the rubbish away only for the customer to hand John $30 in cash. It was soul-crushing. I remember getting the customer to sign off on the paperwork as John said he would meet me back at the truck. I grabbed the last bits of rubbish and made my way downstairs and jumped into the passenger seat. John was trying not to look at me, he had been crying. I asked if he was okay and he kind of broke down a little bit and confided in me. That he was struggling with bills, that the company I worked for was his only decent paying job, that he was getting screwed over by the manager, and that he might have to sell his trucks to pay his bills. My heart went out for this guy. He was becoming a fast friend and genuinely loved his job. I began to hatch a plan based on my inside knowledge of the manager, the area manager, the general manager, and the company in general. I took John to a small bar and bought us a few drinks. We sat in a booth and I began to lay out my plan for revenge. I asked John why he didn't give the manager a price list and charge more for his deliveries. John, if I do that, the manager said they would drop me as their driver and find someone cheaper. I laughed. Me, call her now and quit. I explained that we had seen the run sheet for tomorrow. We had a massive run, 10 deliveries, and we already knew the manager had quoted ridiculously cheap prices, like $20 a delivery. John was not sure. Me, look, any other contract driver would charge $200 minimum per delivery. There is no way another driver will touch this company. John got on the phone, called the manager, put her on speaker, and quit right then and there. The manager, as expected, talked a big game. She said they would be better off without John and that he just lost his biggest contract. John hung up, looking sick and panicked. I reassured him it would be okay. I checked my watch, the store closed at 5 PM and it was currently 1 PM. I promised John by 4 PM he would get a call back from the manager. In the meantime, we set about creating a new list of demands that if they were to employ John, they would do the following. First, charge a preset price given to them by John, then pay for John's off-cider and gas, otherwise also for any difficult deliveries, balcony lifts, fire escape deliveries, they would charge an additional fee. Moreover, that if they wanted to terminate John, they would have to give him the appropriate notice. Sure enough, at 4:30, John's phone rings. Would you look at that? It's the manager. John answers and puts the phone on speaker. The manager, in a much more polite tone, says that if John will do the delivery tomorrow, she will offer him a $50 gift card for the store. I hang up the call. John looks at me in disbelief. I tell him, when she calls back, you lay out your demands, and that's that. 5 minutes later, his phone rings again. It's the manager. John answers and puts her on speakerphone. The manager starts her spiel, but John cuts her off. John begins listing the problems he's having with the company. At first he is nervous, but then the months of being screwed over kick in and he lays down the law like a champion. The manager laughs off John's request and I encourage John to relay the next bit of information to the manager. John, you know as well as I do, no other contract company/contract driver would get out of bed for less than $2.50 a delivery. For what you are proposing, you either sign off on my demands or good luck tomorrow. Manager, fine, do the delivery tomorrow and then we can. John, no, I'm coming down there now. You will sign off on everything and then we will load the truck up tonight and finish the delivery tomorrow. And then he hangs up. We go to the store and the manager looks pissed. She keeps complaining that John has her between a rock and a hard place and that John is extorting her. I cannot help but point out that I am sure John's kids would like to eat tomorrow. John slaps the new contract he has written up by hand in the truck and says sign it. The manager signs it and John backs his truck into the warehouse. We notice as per usual, it is sofa beds, glass coffee tables, the heaviest items this company sells. The manager walks out to the warehouse and smirks as we struggle to load the extremely heavy goods into the truck. As we finish, the manager has a few snarky parting words. Manager, John, with this new contract, just so we are clear, you have to fulfill the delivery no matter what. Me? No matter what, huh? Manager, even if the customer is not home, I expect you to make sure the goods are there. I don't want any goods coming back to the warehouse. John, you got it. It was a glorious delivery day the next day. 80% of customer goods would not fit, as the manager did not explain to the customers that they had to measure their door frames. We had customers screaming at us, abusing us, saying it was unfair they now had to pay more than $20 and how dare we charged them more. We just laughed and complied with the manager's directive. We left every piece of furniture at the property. Some in the hallways, others in the middle of doorways, some we just left at the front door as some customers refused to accept the delivery as they didn't want to pay us any money at all. For the nice ones who had cash ready and were happy to pay us for our obvious efforts, we went that extra mile to get the goods in and make sure they had the best delivery experience possible. Update, what happened with John? After I quit my warehouse job and landed a few acting gigs, I finally landed an acting role on a prominent series. Once at the job, I managed to talk to one of the producers about John, and John got a job picking up the sets from the studio warehouse and transferring the sets to the studio. He would then work with the night crew to erect the sets and get them ready for the next day's shooting. I see him around the studio a lot between setups and also most nights when I rap. He is making great money and is comfortably supporting his family and putting his kids through school. And there is still a good hard-earned beer at the end of the day. And wow, Ripe Stars, I gotta say that was an absolute feel-good story where the little man, so to say, wins. I have to say, whenever I read stories about bosses, managers or higher-ups whatever are abusing employees, I really get angry. So therefore, a story like this really feels good. And Ripe Stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.